Who wants to see a magic trick? Wow, my countdown went full retard there, folks. It actually did it twice on its own. So, yeah, welcome back to the weekly recap, everybody. Hope you all had a good week. We are going to be joined by a third panelist soon. Novus Renaissance. Ambassador is going to be taking some time off, family-wise and whatnot. So we all wish him the best, and he's also trying to get his channel situated and whatnot. So good on him. Sometimes you got to prioritize your own channel over others, folks. It's just how it is. Especially if you're in the YouTube world. But tonight we got another great weekly recap for you. We're talking some entertainment stuff as well as some very real stuff going on. And then we're going to get into a little movie discussion. The Da Vinci Code, the 3-hour version instead of the 2.5-hour version. Great stuff, folks. But before we do get started, if you want to support my channel, want to help my channel out, best thing to do is like, comment, subscribe, and share the content. If you do any of that, it helps the channel get noticed. Seeing how I won't reach 2,000 subs by the end of the year, I will not be doing a giveaway. I did state very plainly, it only happens if I reach 2,000 by the end of the year. As that happens, nobody's going to get a chance to win some pretty nifty binoculars, you know? So, sorry. That's the failing of my channel. We learn from our mistakes. But getting into it, Kate, how you doing?
Doing pretty well. I'm looking forward to being back on here. I like our movie discussion, and let's recap the week.
Exactly. And also, folks, Tuesday night, I do believe, is the Barroom podcast. Also, I will be doing my regularly scheduled Tuesday theme stream, which is going to be talking about Skinwalkers, the 2007 werewolf movie, I believe it was, with good actresses, Sarah Carter, Rona Mitra, and some good actors, Elias Cortez, Jason Bear. So, yeah, good stuff. But right now, we are going to be talking about a more serious stuff. But before we do, let's say hello in the chat to Junebug and to Vanya. Good to see you. Vanya, good to see you. And Junebug, hello. So the first topic of today is, let's see here. Where is it? Yes. Taylor Lorenz celebrates the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO. So, yeah, folks, as you know, over the last week, the United Healthcare CEO was ruthlessly murdered on the streets of New York City by some crazy freaking kid who grew up, well, rather well off. Except that he was radicalized by certain groups, and I will let you know more about it. But first, let's get it. But Taylor Lorenz, let's see here, was on Piers Morgan's show. I have seen the full segment of this whole thing. She actually tried to walk it back. But I am going to play you guys what she said. Now, please, Kate, let me know if my audio dips or anything.
Will do. Yeah.
So let's do this. Let me know if the audio plays.
Of life, and I think that's why I felt,
Good.
along with so many other Americans, joy. Unfortunately, because it
Joy?
feels like,
Serious?
I mean,
Joy
I
at a
guess I would
man's
say
execution?
maybe not joy, but certainly not empathy. Because again, this is a
Watching
man
the
responsible
footage,
for
how can this make you joyful? This guy's a husband, he's a father,
millions,
and he's being gunned down in the middle of Manhattan. Why does that make you
thousands
joyful?
of Americans that he murdered. So are the tens of thousands of Americans, innocent Americans, who died because greedy health insurance executives like this one push policies of denying care to the most vulnerable people. And the many millions of Americans that have watched people that I care about suffer and in some cases die because of lack of health care.
So should they all be killed then? Should they all be killed, these healthcare executives? Would that make you even more joyful?
No, that would not.
But why not?
And,
why are you laughing?
I think because it wouldn't fix the
You seem
system.
to find the whole thing hilarious.
I find your question funny.
A bloke's been murdered in the street. I don't find it funny at all.
I don't find it funny that tens of thousands of Americans die every year and because they are denied life-saving healthcare from people like this CEO. Now, I want to fix the system. You're right. We shouldn't be going around shooting each other with vigilante justice. No. I think that it is a good thing that this murder has led to America, or really the media elites and politicians in this country paying attention to this issue for the first time. You mentioned you couldn't understand why somebody would feel this reaction when they watched a CEO die. It's because you have not dealt, it sounds like, with the American healthcare system in the way that millions of other Americans have.
I've dealt with the healthcare system in various ways in America. I don't think it's perfect by any means, but the idea that I would view it as something.
Have you been denied life-saving treatment?
The idea that I would view it as something joyful that a man who's just a healthcare executive, has been executed in the street, I find completely bizarre.
So, thoughts?
Well, and this is coming from someone who lives in a country where they have the NHS. So people can be denied care there for a plethora of different reasons, other than, here in the United States, where usually it's pre-existing conditions with insurance companies. But you're never going to be denied care if you go to a hospital. So this is, okay, I don't want to break down this argument because it's so stupid, but for her it doesn't matter if that guy is the worst human being possible. It doesn't mean that he should be gunned down in the streets. We have proper laws and a proper system of the way that things should be done in this country. Was he on trial for anything? No. Even if he were, is that how we deal with criminals? Gun them down in the streets of New York? No, that's not how we do things in this country. So for Taylor to say, for Taylor to be joyful and to have that reaction for an American citizen being gunned down, a husband and a father is totally ridiculous, and it goes to show the moral apathy and what happens when you just don't have any sort of moral compass, and you have this moral ambiguity, and there's no right and wrong. Then it's perfectly okay for an American citizen to be gunned down in the streets, as long as it's those people and not the people that we care about. Because I'm sure if it were somebody that she cared about, she'd have a totally different reaction. But because it's part of the they group that she has made in her head, it's perfectly acceptable for her to have a happy reaction when somebody dies in the streets, and I think it's totally sick.
Yeah. As for me, folks, I agree mostly, or possibly wholeheartedly. But Taylor Lorenz, she apparently got fired from Vox. Her contract is up with them. They shorted her contract and whatnot, and it's yeah, we do not really, or we are parting ways with her and whatnot, but they haven't come out and said we are firing her, because she's also denying that they fired her. But the fact that they spend the whole frigging segment. I mean, Pierce even comes out. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you laughing? He actually drops the F-bomb on her. He's like, why are you effing, or what the F is wrong with you? Why are you laughing? What is so effing funny? I mean, he gets visibly upset with this because the
I
thing is,
like
folks,
Pierce for that. He'll hold somebody's foot to the fire. I like that.
oh yeah, I mean, he's a classical liberal, is what he calls himself, but he actually does find some conservatism also agreeable. But the thing, or when it comes to anybody, and I mean anybody, folks, yes, there are times where I have said, oh, sorry about the camera. There have been times where I have said, I wish that this person, well, had come to a bad end. Who hasn't? But the thing is, I would never genuinely say that I am happy somebody is dead. Because one, it's the end of a life, and it's more than just your feelings in the reality of the world. It's those who knew them in a way you didn't. Now, yes, this man may have been a person who is a corporate scumbag, as some people like to call them. But he, again, husband, father, normal person who has to make hard decisions of an entire company. This man runs the entire company. And he has to make decisions that probably break his heart. And to have somebody senselessly murder him. By the way, the murderer, whose name I will not mention on here because I will not give them any notoriety, Taylor Lorenz follows him on social media. That came out. Yeah.
Did she follow him after? I'm just gonna call him Pasta Guy because I have a lot of I have a lot of cousins who have a similar sounding name. But we'll call him.
Oh, you want to know something funny? Somebody actually said to him on his way to extradition in New York, hey, it's a me, and the name that's associated with his name, famous Nintendo brothers, folks. I'm pretty sure you know. Yeah, but
it's
anyway,
me.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so it's like, oh my god, somebody actually fucking went there, and it's funny in the moment, but it's really not funny because that man or the person is absolute scum. But for Taylor Lorenz, this is a woman who has gone after people like Libs of TikTok, who has tried to have Libs of TikTok completely deplatformed, who has faked cry on national news over some bullshit. I mean, she is literally a journalistic scumbag. She is what is known as an actual media parasite. If ever there was one, folks. Now let me get this gosh dang camera going in the right way.
Well, also, she's not the only one to have that sort of reaction to what happened. I feel I've seen a lot of reaction on the left being like, he got what he deserved, blah 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 blah. It's like, okay, really? Like, usually, like back in the day, like we would want Ebenezer Scrooge types to like, meet the three ghosts to learn a life lesson, not get gunned down in the street. Like, have him learn a lesson so he cares about little Timmy. Don't gun him down in the street. Like, what?
Yep.
Like, when did we become a society that celebrated that? Like, I don't care who you are. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Hello, Wanzel Pictures. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. I've recently subscribed to Blue Collar Loser, friend of Critical Drinker. I've only seen a couple of his videos, but seems like a cool guy. And it's good to see you. Boy, you really messed up when the blonde to seem more than intelligent or what than the Burnett and yeah. Because yeah, Tommy Lauren was also in that panel. And it's like, sorry folks, Tommy Lauren is she's Tommy Lauren, let's just say that. I mean, I have my strong opinions on her. I agree with some of what she says, but that woman has ego beyond ego. And honestly, I cannot stand people with that level of ego. We all have great moments of stupidity online. I have. If you haven't, then bullshit. But to actually say it and do it is another story. Well, yeah, I've had a few dumbass moments online. I mean, I've released videos with no audio. I've said some really stupid stuff. I fully admit my faults online. I mean, over the last week, we've had a bunch of drones flying over our freaking states, folks. And, well, I was one of the shoot 'em down crew until I actually started thinking about it. Until I started diving deep down the rabbit hole. And it's like, all right, well, obviously we're not going to shoot them out over populated areas. But what is the purpose? I mean, if the government's denying it, but yeah. Anyway, that's a whole nother discussion for another time. But on the whole thing with Taylor Lorenz, this woman is an absolute nutcase. I think that honestly, Pierce was right to call her out the way he did. I mean, to feel joy over somebody being ruthlessly murdered. And also following the killer on social media. I don't know if it was before or after he was identified, but here's the thing.
It would be, I don't know which one's worse.
She's still defending it. And not only that, I want to know when she started following him. Because if she was following him before he committed this act, I want to know if she's involved. I would literally pull her ass into a fight or into a police station, and I would lay her ass on or sit her ass in a seat for questioning.
Yeah, I second that. What was her reaction to the Trump assassination attempt?
That I don't know, but she is a crazy loony leftist, so I'm willing to bet that she was probably like, "Oh fuck, they missed."
Right, like if we went from we're the party of the loving, tolerant, listen to us to like, yeah, let's just shoot people who disagree with us, I guess, or who we don't like, because that's American.
I mean, if you look at it, folks. Sorry to interrupt. But if you look at all the violence that has been happening and all the violence on that lovely day that they said that we stormed the Capitol, that right-wingers and conservatives stormed the Capitol, well, guess what? It's sort of coming out that the FBI stormed the fucking Capitol, as well as people who were Antifa. And yeah, they were dressed as MAGA. I mean, that's already been a truth that we all already knew to be true. But it's now coming out with clearer, more defined evidence. But not only that, we had the person who took a pew-pew at Trump back in July that dude's, he wanted to go after multiple different politicians, both on left and right. He just took his first shot at Trump. The second one that did that, he was parroting left-wing talking points directly from Kamala Harris's mouth. So yeah. All these people who are very much on the left are the ones that are doing all of this crap. And they're saying we are the violent ones on the right. I just find that completely hypocritical. Any final thoughts on this before we move on to our next one?
No, I'm not surprised that Taylor Lorenz has another bad take. It probably
Yeah.
won't be the last one. But anytime her and like Pearl come up, I'm like, ugh, her again. So
Yeah, right.
yeah,
So moving on to our next one, and believe me, folks, this one pissed me off. I was going to be on the Barroom podcast that night. I actually was on it until I was just so tired because I had my eyes dilated for an eye appointment. I was wiped. My eyes were hurting because of the light sensitivity and whatnot. And I thought it had subsided, but it just came back with like a vengeance. And then the second I clicked off of the stream, 10 minutes later, I was comatose. And so they did talk about this, but I didn't get to talk about it. Did Caitlin Clark go woke? Now, folks, you all know me. If you've seen me talk about Caitlin Clark, it was out of mad respect for the woman until recently, where I have defended her. I have said that, or I have stated that over 20 years, I have been uninterested in professional sports. 20 years. Then all of a sudden, this woman shows up who absolutely loves to play the game, who just wants to play the game, doesn't want to get involved in all the IDP and political bullshit, has suffered at the hands of many jealous players on the court who were assaulting her, outright assaulting her, targeting her, the refs freaking targeting her, the Olympic Games snubbing her. Yet she made Rookie of the Year, and then she made Athlete of the Year, and then she had an interview. Folks, it takes a lot to piss me off. But what I'm about to read is from Caitlin Clark's mouth. And not only then, she also doubles down. So let me go over to X here. Report. After being named Times Athlete of the Year, Caitlin Clark apologizes for her white privilege and says the WNBA is built on black players. I want to say I've earned every single thing, but as a white person, there is privilege. Bullshit. A lot of those players in the league that have been really good have been black players. This league has kind of been built on them. You're ignorant. The more we can appreciate that, highlight that, talk about that, and then continue to have brands and companies invest in those players that have made this league incredible, I think it's very important. I have to continue to try to change that. First off, before we get into her double downing or her double down, don't ever claim that you have privilege, because what you had, or if you are white in the WNBA, you're in a minority for one. You're not, or the only privilege you have is the fact that you got drafted into the WNBA. The only or guess who also has that privilege? Angel Reese. Guess who also has that privilege? All those other players who attacked you. Caitlin Clark. The fact that you think that you have privilege simply because you're white, that actually makes you racist. That makes you racist. Saying that the WNBA was built on the backs of black players? No, it wasn't. It was built on not just black players, but white players and other ethnic players who have been on the teams as well. And not only that, it was built by the NBA. And the NBA has been subsidizing the WNBA because it has not made proper profits. Just because Caitlin Clark brought in a lot of dough this season does not mean that they were operating in the positive area. And then, folks, she doubles down. She doubles down after Megan said something about her. Holy crap. And it turns out she actually has a profile on X. Did not know that. But this is an interview that she did. We're going to play it for you. Asking her, basically clarifying her stuff. Oh, hold on.
Megyn Kelly, she was saying that you were apologizing for your white privilege and the fact that you wanted to uplift Black female athletes and make sure that they were getting the shine, kind of like your pioneers were getting the shine that they deserved. And I just want to know how you feel or how you respond to some of those criticisms when you have to deal with something that it's really not your problem. Like, I feel like it's them looking in a mirror a little bit, but it still comes down on your shoulders.
I feel like I always have had really good perspective on everything that's kind of happened in my life, whether that's been good, whether that's been bad. And then obviously coming to the WNBA, like I've said, I feel like I've earned every single thing that's happened to me over the course of my career. But also, I grew up a fan of this league from a very young age. Like, my favorite player was Maya Moore. Like, I know what this league was about. And like I said, like, it's only been around 25 plus years. So I know there's been so many amazing Black women that have been in this league, and continuing to uplift them, I think, is very important. And that's something I'm very aware of. And like I said, like, I try to just be real and authentic and, you know, share my truth. And I think that's very easy for me. Like, I'm very.
Red flag. I don't need to play the rest of it after she said that, folks. First off, I almost vomited in my mouth when I first heard that. Share my truth. Folks, whenever somebody says my truth, that is an absolute red flag moment. There is no such thing as my truth. There is the truth. And the truth is you earned every step that you got. You got all those endorsements. Awesome. You made yourself known. But you should never have said that, oh, I have privilege. No, you should never have said that. Because now, think of all those little girls who look up to you, whose memorabilia that you've signed and whatnot. Think about all of them and what you are telling them when you say you have white privilege and you're going to own your truth and all that shit. You are making every one of those white girls, specifically if they are white, think that they are some sort of privilege that they don't have. You are going to make them believe that they are somehow racist due to the fact that they have white privilege and whatnot. That is the craziest part of it. And honestly, folks, it needs to be said that Caitlin Clark didn't think this through. But I am also certain, was she put up to this? Did somebody say you need to say this stuff, and this stuff, as well as say whatever the heck you want, but make sure that you add these points in? No. I'm hoping that that is the case, because then, well, yes, there is a reason for it. But the fact of the matter is, I do not think that there is. I think that she has made the decision to say these things on her own. And hello, Novus. Good to see you, man. How you doing?
Greetings.
Greetings. Okay, I think that's what you said.
Greetings, and thank you for having me. Good to be with.
All right. So, yeah, we'll start with you as you are just arriving here. Caitlin Clark doubling down and basically claiming white privilege. What are your thoughts?
Well, in general, from the media, I think what you have now, and I think there was one time we were on last year, is that any time that you have these big social displays of trials starting to get mixed in with the public relationships, she or the individual is just going to give whatever narrative can detract as much attention. So bottom line is, whenever you have this type of situation with the tragic, it's not going to matter what the person actually thinks or what they actually say. There's a narrative to be spun, which then also brings more complications with the justice system, because you can't actually give a person justice whether you give them what they're due or you give them that take care of the other person. So it's an unfortunate situation all around, but we're not going to actually know how she truly feels with anything. So it's the initial thoughts from it.
All right, Kate, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think she's just parroting whatever she's heard. I mean, she's also, how old is she?
22,
21.
going on 23.
So I'd like to give her the benefit of the doubt of just being young and stupid, and being told something and then just her repeating it, because who hasn't done that when they're young and, oh yeah, I'll just go along with whatever this person tells me. So, if I try to give her the benefit of the doubt, there's that. But yeah, there's also, the narrative. And if she falls out of line, it'll make it difficult for her to get sponsorships and things like that in the future. So there's that. It sucks when your job relies on, public opinion as well as other things in an industry like that.
Yep. I mean, folks, y'all know that I've defended this woman. Y'all know that I found out about her saying that she actually got me to look at sports for a little bit. Honestly, or what she has said and whatnot, I'm not paying attention to sports anymore. She just turned out to be another one of those. You're in it for the fucking money. You honestly think that you being white has led you to being where you are in a black dominated sport? It's absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that little girls look up to you and are most likely going to probably think, because they don't know any better, they will treat your word as gospel, that, okay, now I have privilege because I'm white. Maybe I should give to people who haven't earned what I have earned and whatnot. I'm sorry, Angel Reese, yeah, she's a good player in her own right, but look at what she says, look at what she does, and look at how she dresses when she's at the clubs with half her ass sticking out. Also, to that other one who nearly gouged Caitlin Clark's eyes out with fucking fingernails that are this fucking long on their fingers. Who plays basketball with fingernails that fucking long? No offense, I honestly think that maybe you need to trim your fucking nails before you get on the court. I mean, it's to the point, folks, where, yeah, Novus in the chat says it's about the message now. And that is why I walked away from ever caring about sports again. The WNBA, those who went to watch Caitlin Clark play and whatnot, if you are against the wokeness, if you are against the identity politics, boycott it. Show her that there are consequences for actions that are heinous. Now, you are entitled to your opinion. Yes, Caitlin, you are allowed to say whatever the fuck you want. But to claim that you have privilege is actually an admission of actual fucking racism. And the fact that you have kids that look up to you makes it all the worse. Moving on to our next topic. which is the War of the Rohirrim. Let me.
I have
find
a
the-
final thought on that last one.
All right.
You know, it with the key thing here is that if you're in sports or you have an industry, it's about your brand. And you can look at some very good classic, I think Denzel Washington and Morgan Freeman, definitely up until the 2010s. I don't know what their positions are in the last 5 years, but you can watch clips of them, particularly Morgan Freeman, when they're talking about inserting hyphens in front of American or as an actor. He says, "I'm an actor, I'm a man," you know, or they talk about their business and they are an actor first and foremost. They
Yeah.
have a brand, they have a job to do. And if you're in the entertainment or the sports industry, you know, we have seen time after time, and we're getting ready to talk about the Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim. It's not about the message; it's about your job. And so, branding yourself and staying out of these current events and staying out of these very sensitive and explosive, because it's digital. It's the digital impact. If you make a tweet now or an Xer, and you don't want to engage in the full slugfest, then stay in your sport. But fortunately, we have independent sports that are around the world. Like we had the Formula One going in Abu Dhabi over the last week and a half. There's a whole range of stuff, you know, with the rugby, but we have the UFC. So, and you know, that's touched a little bit in the last year. But for the most part, those fighters and those individuals, they stick to fighting and they stick to the brand. And that should be a lesson for everybody, unless they're prepared to get into situations like this. So, and hail nerd with a cigar as well. Greetings.
Hey, hello. How's it going?
Alrighty. So moving on, or is there any other final things, Kate, that you wanted to say?
No, that's a pretty good. That was a pretty good analysis. Yeah, like get ready if you want to play over here in this court. All right, get ready.
All right. So, folks, I'm breaking out my Narcel Andoril cross for this next one, because be gone demons who completely just destroy gospel. So apparently, folks, the War of the Rohirrim's Philip Boyan's producer is defending lore deviations from Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim. It's to the point where that is the only time I will ever call it Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim. I am only going to call it War of the Rohirrim from now on, because it's not Lord of the Rings. So let's get into this. This is from Fandom Pulse. So War of the Rings, or War of the Rohirrim producer, Philip Boyens attempts to defend destroying Tolkien's lore. We can't ruin Tolkien's books. Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim producer, shit, I did it again, even though I said I wouldn't. Philippa Boyens attempted to defend her desecration of Tolkien's lore in the film by claiming that she and the people who worked on the film can't ruin Tolkien's books. In an interview with IGN, Boyens stated Professor Tolkien stated in his letters that the most compelling story is the untold story. We can't do anything to, or she also added, we can't do anything to those books. Those books are going to stand as these masterpieces, hopefully till the end of time. We can't ruin them. So people who come at you saying, oh, you've ruined this or you've ruined that. No, all we did was we presented you with an adaptation of this work. And some people will come at you or come to it and relate to it, and some people won't. And sometimes the criticism is justified, and sometimes it doesn't. I think she means isn't. Nevertheless, Boyens also explained that they didn't completely eschew the books. What I think we will see unfold, hopefully, because this is where we work from, is that don't just change something arbitrarily. If we're going to change something, do it for good storytelling reasons, and anything you bring to it, make it feel real, make it feel authentic. She later added, make sure you know what that reason is, and it's a really good storytelling reason why you are having to make that change. If you're adding, make it as authentic as you can possibly make it. Jesus, Fandom Pulse has the same problem with bounding into comics. Just doesn't sound like it's said right. So we didn't just draw upon Éowyn for Hera. We drew upon the women from early English history that Tolkien himself would have been familiar with. So there's nothing woke about this, guys, if you're out there, Boyens declared. Nevertheless, she also admitted it's an interesting piece of storytelling that even if you just follow the bare threads that are in the book, and that's because it starts out huge and quite epic. She also wildly misinterpreted Tolkien's comments about wanting other individuals to work within and expand on the mythology he created in Lord of the Rings. She said Tolkien didn't just write books, he wrote an entire mythology, a vast, incredible work which is so detailed and complex and works on so many different layers. You can just leave that alone and not touch it. But he himself did not want that. And he himself said that he wanted other minds to come to it, bringing music and art and drama to it. So he had its sense of that at some stage, because what he knew about myths is that it cannot be immutable. It is unclear where she gets this claim that Tolkien wanted other minds to come to his work. In letter 131 to Milton Waldman, Tolkien was rather blunt about his thoughts. It is not possible, even at great length, to pot Lord of the Rings in a paragraph or two. It was begun in 1936, and every part has been written many times. Hardly a word in its 600,000 or more has been unconsidered. Meaning, this dude took painstaking efforts in all of what he was writing. And the placing, size, style, and contribution to the whole of all the features, incidents, chapters has been laboriously pondered. I do not say this in recommendation. It is, I feel, only too likely that I am deluded, lost in a web of vain imaginings of not much value to others, in spite of the fact that a few readers have found it good on the whole. What I intend to do is this: I cannot substantially alter the thing. I have finished it. It is off my mind. The labor has been colossal, and it must stand for all, practically as it is. Meaning, don't change it. And to the point that she or anybody else cannot ruin the books. That is likely true, albeit we've recently seen publishers attempting to insert woke edits to classic books. Nevertheless, she can shape the narrative around the people, or around what people think the characters and the books are about for those who have not read them, especially in this day and age when the medium of film and television is much more popular than books. This was done with Aragorn in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy. Aragorn is depicted as an individual who is reluctant to claim the crown and king, and fears making the same mistakes of his ancestor Isildur. However, in the Tolkien books, this is nowhere near the truth. Case in point, Aragorn carried around the shards of Narsil with him, and even showed it off to the hobbits. Tolkien wrote, "But I am Aragorn, and those verses go with that name." He drew out his sword, and they saw that the blade was indeed broken a foot below the hilt. "Not much, is it, Sam?" said Strider, but the time is near when it shall be forged anew. At Rivendell, Aragorn informs Boromir, but now the world is changing once again. A new hour comes. Isildur's bane is found. Battle is at hand. The sword shall be reforged. I will come to Minas Tirith. Furthermore,
So epic. Sorry. Yeah,
Oh,
you just
yeah.
read that so well.
Right. I
Amazing.
mean, come on. Yeah.
Oh man, Ray, raise
Oh, I
the
love
raise,
reading Lord of the
light
Rings,
the beacons
folks.
right now.
Yeah, I love
Like,
reading Lord of the Rings.
anytime he speaks, I'm like, where's my sword? I'm ready for war. Let's go.
Exactly. Furthermore,
Bravo.
he makes it clear he takes pride in being the chieftain of the Dunedain and protecting people from the evils haunting the world. But my home, such as I have, is in the north. For here the heirs of the Landil have ever dwelt in long line unbroken from father unto son for many generations. Our days have darkened and we have dwindled, but ever the sword has passed to a new keeper. And this I will say to you, Boromir, ere I end. Lonely men are we, rangers of the wild, hunters, but hunters ever of the servants of the enemy. For they are found in many places, not in Mordor only. If Gondor, Boromir, has been a stalwart tower, we have played another part. Many evil things there are that your strong walls and bright swords do not stay. You know little of the lands beyond your bounds. Aragorn continued, peace and freedom, do you say? The north would have known them little but for us. Fear would have destroyed them. But when dark things come from the houseless hills, or creep from sunless woods, they fly from us. What roads would any dare to tread? What safety would there be in quiet lands or in homes of simple men at night if the Dunedain were asleep or were all gone into the grave? What do you make of Boyan's comments? I do think that she is trying to justify it. Yes, it is absolutely true that we cannot alter the books. The books are as they are. However, the point is when you are taking something that is Tolkien's and adapting it, it is best to adapt it as close to what it is in the story and how it is portrayed. From what we remember of Hera from the readings, she really wasn't that significant. Now,
She
Anne
didn't
on
even
the
have a
other
name.
hand, she was. So what now?
Apparently, the main character of like the whole show, she was unnamed. She was just an unnamed daughter.
Yeah.
Actually, that is an excellent point because Tolkien, and we have the collector's edition book in front of us, just as we're talking about this. The daughter is unnamed. 100% orthodox point on that.
And
Yeah.
I would have been totally okay with a Helm Hammerhand lore driven, like, just a really good show about his story that was just as close to the lore as possible, as you said, Orange.
That's
Because
what
that's
many of them wanted. They wanted the story of Helm Hammerhand. They didn't want this thing that they got with the War of the Rohirrim.
And it's not the anime style either. The true, we have to now actually, since the Rings of Power heresy that's splitting the fandom, we have to basically there's an orthodox Tolkien fandom, and then there's the heretics, the apostate schismatics like Corey Olsen, and all 25 different YouTube channels or web links like OneRing.net. Yeah, you're correct. It's not the anime. There's plenty to draw from.
What we need to have happen with this, what we need to have happen with this stuff is they need to make an acolyte version of Lord of the Rings. Because then, once it gets canceled, wait, holy crap, we already have it. It's called Rings of Power, Season 3. Because here's the thing, folks. Everybody's whining about Season 3 happening. Season 3 was contractually entered at the beginning of the contract. You get 3 seasons to make your mark. The 4th and 5th depend on success and ratings.
Which is not how TV used to be made. It used to
Oh, no.
be you'd make a pilot, you'd try to sell it, you'd sell your vision, your pilot would try to hook, someone in, and then someone would say, okay, I'm going to fund, 10 episodes of this. I like your pilot. Go.
Mhm.
That's why you hear about like unaired failed pilots, because once a studio picks it up, usually they'll come in and say, okay, yeah, we like it, but change this, change this. Buffy the Vampire Slayer had a different Willow. Game of Thrones pilot apparently sucked so bad, and they had to like replace half half the characters. But now with streaming, what they're doing is they're like, hey, I want to do 5 seasons of this, and HBO and or Prime and or insert random streaming here will go, yeah, sure. They'll fund it, lose a ton of money, and go, well, I guess it's the fans' fault, and and then we just keep doing that over and over and over again.
Excellent
No.
storytelling, effects design, casts, having a message out of politics. That doesn't really matter anymore. None of those
Right.
factors. You know,
Right.
it's like the South Park parody with a corporation like Netflix, where they're like, just make everything, and then many memes off of that.
Right.
Novus, explain this.
So with this Roar of the Rohirrim, I think since we I'll have a timer set for 2 minutes, and then you can stop me and we'll move on. But we did have a couple points, and we really liked the articles you sent. The first point is that article itself for the readers has also some very good follow-on articles, so you can get more in depth. It gets into depth. Actually, it's kind of to the embarrassment, because basically the international debut has happened, and the international debut as of thus far, I mean, think about this: a Tolkien quote unquote based adaptation from the appendices. It hits over 3,400 theaters in 31 different countries. This book has been translated, I think, close to 50 languages. And I think it has over 100 million copies in multiple languages at this point in its history. It garnered 2 million. Highest performer was 347,000 in Spain. This is the foreboding that they're loathing, and the Orthodox fans of Tolkien are saying, we're not going to do it. # respect for Tolkien. The other thing too, it's interesting, is when you actually get into and read what Miss Boyan says, it really is a fall to heresy. And she's one of the people with Peter Jackson and her earlier colleague. They made a great trilogy. And to her point that she tries to make in the film, or about the article about adapting different things, yeah, I mean, they did take some adaptations. Like, we don't have Glorfindel in the Fellowship of the Rings. We have Arwen, but that was bringing in something that was very precious to Tolkien, so that everybody could enjoy it. So her point falls flat. And then from an analysis of the actual story itself, well, if you go into the appendix, and in the collector's edition that we have, the big one, it's got the nice red hardcover to paint a reference for people. Appendix A 346 to 347, it actually talks about the story of Helm, Hammerhead, and the Dunlendings, and the fight that comes from this. So you've got it where all they talk about is Helm's daughter. To one of these councils, Freka rode with many men. He asked for the hand of Helm's daughter for his son Wolf. That's all that we have with the daughter. And then if you jump into the first Kings of the Mark, which is also, to Nerd with Cigar, the great point is this is the first line of Kings before it starts the second line of Kings. And Helm, Hammerhand, is the last of the first line of Kings, 2691 to 2759 of the age. And specifically, Tolkien has about him, Helm Hammerhand, at the end of his reign, Rohan suffered great loss by invasion and the long winter. Helm and his sons Haleth and Hama perished. Freylaf, Helm's sister's son, became king. So the brilliance of just that, and this is, if a studio takes this advice, they all have to pay us for this presentation of data, for you hosting, and the brilliance here. But why not have Freylaf's mother, in replace of Hera, actually give her a Nordic base name, and then you tie in those three together. I mean, we have 2 of Helm's sons dying, and they die fighting, and he has no heirs, which means the next line comes. So the opportunity's wasted. and our closing point for this match is like you had in the 60s, 70s until George Lucas came with Star Wars and the cinematic effects. You had imagination busting at the seams, except you were bound by technology and reality of what you could actually make. Now, with computer graphic interface, AI, and all the technology, the imagination has unlimited capacity to actually make worlds and make things. And we have no imagination. The currency of creativity is almost debunked. And the tragedy of War of the Rohirrim is that an opportunity to continue to make cool stories, an orthodox story from the Tolkien verse, has just been punted. And it's not that hard. So exerce Tolkien, and I'll pause there. Hand it over to you guys.
So, Riot Kitty, I mean, if you want to go see it, nobody's saying you can't. I mean, if you want to go see it, by all means, go see it. Have your own opinion on it. I honestly encourage people to see whatever they want to see if they want to see it, so that they can have their own opinion on it. Me, however, as much as of a Lord of the Rings fan as I am, I do not feel the need to see this. Because, honestly, it's like, we didn't ask for this. I wanted to see, honestly, I want to see the Silmarillion adapted properly. We'll never
No,
see
don't
that
touch
within
it.
we will never see that
No.
within my lifetime.
I don't want them to touch it. They'll ruin it. Don't touch it.
Oh, I'm not talking about the people who are currently in power. I'm talking about
Yeah,
somebody
like
who
don't
would
even
respect
look
it.
at it. Don't think about it. Don't
Yeah.
dream about it. Don't breathe near it. Don't touch it. Leave it. Leave it alone.
But the thing is, once the third season of Rings of Power fails, and it will, folks, they're constantly ratioed online to the point where YouTube is trying to prevent the dislike extension from working. They're making efforts to counter it, especially after the Snow White debacle. But the point is, the more that they keep doing this, the more that they keep saying, we are going to tell the story that Tolkien never could. First off, fuck you to the moon. Secondly, you don't say that you have all the respect for somebody and then say that we're going to do what he couldn't. You are there, or you are then saying that you are superior to them. John Ronald Reuel Tolkien is the greatest author of the 20th century. C.S. Lewis, a close second.
Bravo.
So
And there were
if
bugs. So
if you think that you are somehow going to do a better job than the creator of the content themselves, or himself in this case, you are so delusional that they should bring back mental institutions specifically because you have that level of delusional behavior. Any final thoughts on this before we start our movie discussion?
it's kind of counterintuitive for them to want to make a TV show, and they wanted to tap into a fan, or into something that already had a fan base, and then they just gave a giant middle finger to the fan base that's spanned a couple generations now at this point. Um, and I remember them releasing articles before the first season came out saying, "Hey guys, if you're a Tolkien purist, don't watch our TV show." And now they want to blame toxic fandom for their show not succeeding, at least for the first two seasons, and it probably won't succeed its third if they continue doing what they're doing, which they will. It's just it's very counterintuitive. So it's funny to watch them crash and burn. I still have a plethora of books on my shelf that give me hours of entertainment of Tolkien lore, and they don't need to be adopted. That's okay. I'm all right with our three good movies, and two animated movies from the 70s are pretty good too. And we can just live with that, and it'll be all right.
All right.
Well said, nerd, and we'll echo with that. First, the point of the Silmarillion is the brilliance with having Christopher Tolkien, which really the canon ends after Christopher Tolkien. There was a couple comments that came out from the he's, and again, we've researched this. He's actually not a professor of Tolkien studies, an actual academic professor, Corey Olson. He starts this whole new mantra of there's no Tolkien canon. It's absolute nonsense. But then you have other people like Nerd of the Rings and some others say, like, what's the Tolkien canon? Tolkien canon is anything that Tolkien wrote plus then what his son was in charge of and he authorized. And what he had done with the Silmarillion is he started to break up some of the stories, but he made them complete. We just read Beren and Luthien. So that's a slice of the Silmarillion. But to your point about Silmarillion, that would have been a KO movie. It would have been so simple. And it's all organized now. But, you know, let's go back to the new heresy of War of the Rohirrim. We take this one point from the article that Miss Boyan says, quote, we know Helm had a daughter and we know that she was central to the conflict that happened. Well, that's 100% not true just from the readings. And then she says, but myself, especially screenwriter Phoebe Gittins, were drawn to her. Okay, well, now you're inserting your personal choice and preference. There are other sons, there are men, there are characters, and we have Helm's female family member whose son later becomes king because all his heirs are killed. Presumably, his daughter could have been killed too. And then to finish, quote, we could feel the weight of being that unnamed daughter, which immediately piqued our interest. Who was she? How does she live? This is absolute nonsense. And we will say in closing, since we are in the winter, Yuletide, Christmas season, in the actual penancy, Tolkien, he didn't call it Christmas, he called it Yule. And that's that tribute to sort of that English Nordic time of Festivus. But he says, quote, in Helm's Deep, there was a great hunger. This is during the war and the long winter, which Rohan was under snow for 5 months. So, quote, in the Helm's Deep, there was a great hunger after Yule, and being in despair against the king's counsel, Hama, his younger son, led the men out of a soiree and foray, but they were lost in the snow. So we actually have in this story, quote unquote, basically Yuletide. We have a Christmas season in the store, in this story. And when they decide to release this movie, they released it during a Christmas Yuletide season. I mean, talk about marketing. Talk about marketing, you know, talk about just linking the dots together. Oh, we have a Merry freaking Lord of the Rings Christmas. I mean, if you're talking about a franchise, like there's your new franchise line. You could have Santa ho-ho-hoing in Middle Earth with an axe and a sword and a mug of ale. I mean, who wouldn't want to buy that? Sign me up. But nope, it's all madness and stupidity. So,
yeah, have David Arbor play him.
Slam dunk. It's almost as easy as releasing Lion Witch in the Wardrobe around Christmas. Like they meet Santa for Christmas. Like slam dunk. Yeah.
Yes.
Too bad they respect the lore enough to realize how interesting and creative it is to be like, hey, isn't this cool? Let's do this.
I like those movies, especially the extended edition to the first one. I mean, it's like, don't cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
Lion Jesus? Heck yeah.
I mean,
and
they
even the BBC with the puppets.
So well.
The BBC version with the puppets were great.
Those were great
I
too.
missed those versions. I missed that version.
Because they got further along in the series too. I think they did like Silver Chair and everything.
Yeah.
And we mustn't forget about the cartoon with that as well. And unfortunately now the Netflix incoming Lion Witch in a Wardrobe season, if you've been reading about it, the producer's like, well, you know, I want to kind of adapt it. And she talked about comment about rock and roll. So it's like now the Lewis universe of the Chronicles of Narnia is going to go through the same thing, and you're going to have a split of fandom. And part of it might be design, part of it might just be complete stupidity that these people are unqualified. And we made one of these points in our Heretics and Hounds series when we had the Rings of Power going on for the last one. It was our counter to it. We equate, like, if you willingly do things like this to a work of literature, it is in our judgment no difference to the principle of taking the great works of art during Europe that the German government and the Nazis did and burning them. They had the film Monuments Men. It's the book Rape of Europe. They just took the art and they burned it because they couldn't keep it, so they weren't going to let anybody have it. So you are desecrating literature that, as you said, Orange, Tolkien is the author of the 20th century. Phenomenal. He saved heroic genre from the desecration of the generation of World War I that were all falling into despair. And it's like but what, because you bought it? Now these are public works, and they should be treated no differently than the Mona Lisa, the statues, the great works of antiquity. To desecrate them is to desecrate a part of the human soul, and that is a crime against humanity. But anyway.
Yeah. So with that, we are now moving on to our movie discussion, folks. The Da Vinci Code. Now, this movie has a 3-hour version that we, I watched, Kate watched. I don't know if Novus watched it. But
we have watched the movie, not the 3-hour one, but we have watched it, and
right.
the documentaries that they put with the extras.
Accidentally got the 3-hour version. I was like, huh, this is kind
Well,
of
it's
long.
not by
I wasn't
accident.
mad
It's a
about
happy accident.
it. Yeah, right. I wasn't upset about it at all.
But yes, this movie is actually a sequel to its sequel from the movie-wise, because in the movies, Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, Inferno. The books, it's Angels and Demons, Da Vinci Code, and then Inferno. And
great point, actually, by the way.
yeah, I also, from what I understand, Dan Brown is not welcome in Vatican City. I mean, he can go there. He's just not. He's not going to be respected there. This man has written or the church, the Vatican, all of them basically said, if you are a Christian, boycott these movies and books, because they are extremely heretical.
Heretical. But they're works of fiction, so
true. But but Vatican also understands that media like this, movies and whatnot, still do have a cultural impact.
Okay, all right, valid.
We got two comments on that. One, if anyone's seen John Wick 4, the greater culture is now more familiar with the phrase excommunication, and you see it. It's like, yep, you're on your own now. Everybody pile in with your guns. So it's like, but can you imagine like a John Wick sequence of like the Pope saying, "Dan de Brown, you are excommunicado from Vatican City." It's like, whoa. I mean, that would just be epic to see, and memes galore. But the other thing too is, who knows how? I don't think the Vatican probably has given an official encyclical on it, but yeah, they're probably not appreciated, because I know when the original movie came out, it kind of had this. Dan Brown didn't really come out and say like, oh, it's just fiction. I took some stuff. That being aside, basically, yeah, there's some tie-ins to it, but he lived it up. Because why was he living it up? He has a book that has 3 pages per chapter, so everybody feels they're smarter by reading more. But then it's like, oh, it's going to rocket his movie. It's going to rocket his book. So it's like, no need to correct anything. Believe what you want. And in some ways, it's kind of like what we just talked about, Lord of the Rings. Well, I'm just going to make whatever I want, and then I'll just let it go. And people like that stuff.
One of the things that I will say about this movie is I've always viewed Da Vinci Code as a what-if story. It's not the true story. It's a what-if scenario for the Bible. What if Jesus was just a normal or an average Joe who did potentially have a bloodline? What if? And yes, I do believe that this movie, in that case, answers that story very well. Now, do I believe that it is true? No, I do not. I am
The Catholic
baptized.
Church wouldn't exist at all, though, if that's like it's. I see your point.
It wouldn't exist as we know it.
Because the first century Jewish Christian church didn't look anything like Roman Catholicism today. So
now,
the whole like basis of the movie is like, oh, it's the center of the church's power on earth. Like yeah, I see where you're going with it, but again, like it would have been like Christianity would have been wiped out as nothing in the first century if this were the case. You know what I mean? But
one of the things I will say about this is, from my own reading of the Bible, when I read the Bible, I believe only Mary was the one who or Mary Magdalene was the one who witnessed his resurrection.
Post
No.
resurrection.
Or post-resurrection. Okay.
That's
Well,
great
she was the
points on
first.
those. You
She
actually
was
read
the
the
first.
if you read the actual literature, no one actually witnessed. They saw the after effect, and she was one of the first women at the tomb.
Yes. And if you do look at the Last Supper, the painting, now, folks, the woman on Jesus's, or the person to Jesus's right, does very much I've looked at the original painting. I've popped that sucker up. It's like, I've looked at it very closely. Yes, that person is rather feminine.
A youthful lad.
So who is to say that it couldn't have been a woman next to him? Now, this movie, I do not lose any, or it does not lose any objective quality subjective quality, because just because I was baptized Catholic, I am by no means a perfect Catholic or a practicing Catholic for that matter. I do pray, yes. I do believe in God, yes. I do not follow all the rules of the church. I mean, if I went to confessions, it would take a month long. Let's just say that, folks.
And I'm the panel's Protestant, so.
Yeah.
Look, we have
but
an ecumenical gathering. This is historic.
Yeah. The thing is, I don't look at this movie from a religious aspect. Yes, there are religious aspects to the movie. Yes, there are religious aspects to the story. Yes, it is a semi-religious story.
But we can watch the movie as a, yeah.
I watch it as a mystery movie. And I gotta say, the cast that they have in this movie, Jean Reno, Tom Hanks, Sir Ian McKellen, Alfred Molina, and what's his name, who played Jarvis in Vision?
Paul Bettany.
That one, yep.
Well,
I
and
gotta
too, people, you can watch a movie. You know, like again, I
Yeah.
think the biggest thing the Vatican could have a complaint with is like you could have marketed better. But one of the cool things about the movie, they actually go to these locations, so you actually get to see Rosslyn Chapel. You get to go. It starts, I believe it starts in
And the
in
Louvre.
Paris,
In the Louvre.
in the Ritz.
Yep.
So, and then you
Oh,
have in the Louvre. So you get scenes of Paris, and they even have, I think, Frommer's in 2007. And I'm sure it's been revised since then. They have a Da Vinci Code walking tour of Paris, which you can actually go to, and you can go where the monk was, that one church, and it's fantastic. But that's part of the fun, is you actually, these locations you can go to, and they exist, and that is also part of the fun of watching the movie. Plus, then you have that great challenge password that Robert
Yeah.
Langdon says to Ian McKellen or Tom Hanks, and he says, like, basically, when did Harvard or Yale rowing team beat in Oxford? And he looks at Sophia, the actress in the movie, he's like, and he kind of like grins. He's like, surely such a tragedy has never occurred. And then he tells, like, you have chosen true, or you spoke true,
Or your heart
and
is
yours
true.
like-
Yeah.
It's almost
Your
like
heart.
he's like, you've spoken friend and inner. It's like a little Lord of the Ring-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I took a little like Sphinx at the gate, and I really enjoyed how we got introduced to that character. He gave him 3 questions,
Mhm.
and yeah, very you know, I just like little riddles and stuff like that, and it was a great way to introduce the character. But yeah, it's a fun little like kind of like national treasure hunt
Oh, yeah.
of Bible mysteries, I guess, if you want to describe it that way.
Mhm.
That's
it's
a
a
great
fun
analogy, nerd. That's a great analogy.
it's kind
And-
of a hodgepodge of little things, but it's a fun watch.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. And one of the things I do like is that they actually by all means, folks, never get your history from movies, because there are a lot of things that this movie got wrong. Specifically, some church history. However, there are books that are mentioned in this movie, such as the Malleus Maleficarum. That book is real. That book is pretty much one of the most blood-soaked books in history. Because yes, the Catholics, or the Catholic Church, as much as I am a person who acknowledges religion, I do not think that any person who is a person of faith should ever completely just ignore the sins of that religion. Every religion has skeletons. And when I say skeletons, I mean there has been war in almost every religion. Pretty much, or actually, I think I should take out the almost, and I should say there has been war in every religion. Because even Hinduism and Taoism and all of them that are very peaceful preaching religions, there have been war waged in those religions and different sects of those religions.
With
talking about
tensions still to this day, actually, if you get
Yep.
like with great points, you get down into it. So, although we will say with the Da Vinci Code, the scenes, one of the coolest scenes in the movie is when it is Ian McKellen talking to Tom Hanks at his study in France, and he's referring back to like the Council of Nicaea and the Crusades, and they do kind of like a shot of the Templars and a shot of the armies. I think one of the siege of Jerusalem. That's pretty cool. It's like
that
it's
before
like
that scene. That was in the
Yeah.
park
Yeah,
when
it's like the
he's
ultimate-
explaining. Yeah,
it's like the ultimate narration scene where it's like, let me show you in real time the history of like almost 2,000 years ago.
yep. And there now, folks, as heretical as this movie is from a theological standpoint, the logic that is employed in this movie, Sang Real, the French terms and whatnot, they do hold up. I actually did do the don't know if I well, Niazoka, I will get to this question, but honestly, this movie is so expansive that we might not get to all of the different questions that you may have. Orange and Crew, how would you compare Da Vinci Code with other Ron Howard films such as Willow? Willow was great. Apollo 13, honestly, I have not seen that. How the Grinch Stole Current, Jim Carrey. Ron Howard did that? Son of a bitch.
Wait, you haven't seen Apollo 13?
Apollo 13 is a great movie. So
I
is
saw
Cinderella.
it years ago. I don't think I have seen it since.
There you go. I submit to you that you could use that as a if you watch films on the
Yeah.
channel, which I think you do. That would be one to do because that's a good one. And Tom Hanks looks so healthy and youthful in the film.
But
Kevin Bacon.
Da Vinci Code, when compared to these or to other movies that Ron Howard has done, Willow was not just done solely by Ron Howard. George Lucas had a huge stake in that movie as well. But
Executive
when it
producer.
comes to when it comes to the Langdon trilogy, Angels and Demons and Da Vinci Code really stand out, where Inferno is good, but it doesn't really. And we will discuss Angels and Demons and Inferno in the weeks to come, folks. But this movie, honestly, was the best of the trilogy, in my opinion. I've read the books of Da Vinci Code, and I've also read Angels and Demons. Gotta say, it's hard to put these books down when you read them. That is actually something that both Tom Hanks and a couple of others who have read the books just to get a taste of what they're getting in for. He's like, I found I couldn't put it down once I picked it up because it's like, holy crap, you know.
We'll say though, for Angels and Demons though, the scene when which we won't say because we don't want to spoil it for anybody if they haven't seen it, but that scene with the fire and the branding and Ian McKellen, not Ian McKellen, Ian McGregor. That's pretty like that's like an oh my gosh scene where you
like a holy shit moment. Yeah.
But that's where it's like he almost does it.
Yeah, but getting back to this, I really do think that Da Vinci Code really does stand out. This movie, as I said, never get your history from film, because this movie displays history in a rather convincing way, which is why I emphasize never get your history from film, because as I said, it's convincing. The logic stands in these movies. You can almost believe what they are saying if you are not reminding yourself this is just a movie. It is not real by any freaking measure. Not to mention, the church has basically said, dude, you can come to Vatican City, but you will know you are not welcome in Vatican City.
You know what it probably was? The Catholic Church hates it when the Catholic Church is portrayed in a negative light.
Oh, they very
In
much hate that, but they also
so
hate the fact that they
I
hate
mean, sure.
anything that will take away from what they have preached. They are very
Well,
extremely dogmatic in that sense.
well, I mean, if to be a Christian means you believe in the deity of Christ and his resurrection. So, I mean, just by definition, it doesn't matter if you're Catholic, Protestant, Baptist, Episcopalian, whatever. If you're a Christian, you believe Jesus came as a man, fully God, to earth, died, but resurrected, and he is in heaven alive right now. That is as dogmatic as it gets. So I understand the church, but the Catholic Church is its own thing, and they act, and it doesn't represent all of Christianity. I feel like if a Christian watches this movie and is shaken in their faith, then they didn't really have that much strong faith to begin with. So
Yeah.
it's just a movie, guys. It's fine. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's
But
okay.
there's another question that is raised at the end or near the end of the movie. What would a living descendant of Christ do with the knowledge she holds? Would she destroy faith, or would she renew faith? And now,
I think it would be more destructive to the Christian faith if they were like, "Hey, we found the body of Jesus," rather than "We
well,
found a
it's not
living."
the body of Jesus in this case. It's the body of Mary Magdalene, which
Right, but I'm saying in the real world,
which is about 5 to 7 stories down underneath the Louvre
the
triangle with the
right,
coffin and the rose, because the Templar descendants moved it. It's there right now.
yeah. But
and
here's
he
the
prayed
thing,
to it at the
folks.
end. Came
Here's
full
the
Yeah,
circle,
thing.
exactly.
triangle.
This is one of the biggest plot holes in the movie. You cannot prove that Jesus and Mary Magdalene were husband and wife. Now,
But
Mary
that was the
Magdalene,
argument, though, is that you can't not prove it. That was the argument
yes,
between
but
Lee and Sir Ian McKellen's character and
Tom
Tam
Hanks, yeah,
Hunk's character.
Tom
If you
Hanks,
Well,
can't prove it, you
Tom
can't not
Hanks.
prove it.
there was a and
Somebody
there
has
was
a crush.
yeah, it's
Tam
funny.
Hunk.
There was also a kind of a, it was, I think it was an unfortunate part of the script, because you're dealing with the, quote unquote supernatural and the divine and all this, but then Tom Hanks's character makes a comment to Sophia at the end of the movie, and he's just like, basically, they're in Roslyn,
Yeah,
Scotland, at the chapel. He's like, why couldn't Jesus just been a man and done all those miracles? I'm like, well, that's like literally been the whole point of the movie there, Professor
it's like,
Langdon. It's like
yeah,
it's kind of undercuts it, because it's like, okay, well, yeah, why don't we all do miracles? It's like, well, miracles are something that suspends the laws of science, or they're unexplainable by a scientific analysis of a particular field. So it's kind of like it kind of undercuts it, but the end, yeah, I think they've got that shot though at the end where they pan out and then pan
right.
in. That was properly done. And again, we're
Now,
back in Paris, so the
yeah.
wonderful places to see in the movie. If you see it for anything, see it for the travel.
Now, Audrey
And
Tautou,
it's
who played,
great, the locations, like you
oh yeah,
mentioned that, and I will say, like, having been there myself, I'm like, yeah, oh, it does look like that. Oh man, like, and it's
yeah,
and mostly shot at night, or at least they filtered it or something. So it looked pretty empty, and they had, the area to themselves, because usually it's just like filled with tourists all the time.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Now,
but anyway.
what did you guys think of the actress Audrey Tautou?
That was the main girl lead, female lead.
Yeah. Yes. She was she was Sophie.
Good, I guess. Are you going somewhere with this question?
Well, in a way, yes, because in the movie, folks, she indeed displays a somewhat of a healing ability or a healing effect to Tom Hanks, because Tom Hanks in the movie is claustrophobic. He fell down a well when he was a kid, and it traumatized him to the point where he developed a claustrophobic sense. And so when she goes down, or when they're in the back of the armored car, she massages his temples, and he honestly has not felt or in any way claustrophobic since. Now, that is not done in the book, or rather, it doesn't last the rest of his life in the book, because he does have claustrophobic moments in other books, especially I think like the fourth or fifth book. But it does wonder, or it does. I like how those moments gave clues that there is something about her that is more than what we understand. So, did you guys get that sense when you saw this movie with that character?
Oh, yeah. I don't think that was a twist for me, but I'm like the queen of guessing movie endings before they happen. I'm like, oh, this character's gonna do this, and the person I'm watching with will be like, oh my god, what do you mean? And then when it happens, I'm like, see, told you. So, there was a ton of little breadcrumbs that they were like obviously leading you to, and not just in the script, but the camera work, where they're like, hey, look at this, notice this thing. Um, I think the breadcrumbs left all along. I think maybe 30 to 45 minutes within the 3 hour long version of the movie, before Tom Hanks was like, "Hey, you're this person." I was like, "Yeah, I knew that 45 minutes ago, dude. You didn't know that before?" It seemed like the plot was like, "Hello, it's her the whole time."
Yeah.
Especially in the beginning, like his book was like all about what was the name of his book about the divine
The
feminine or
sacred
something?
feminine, or the sacred
Yeah,
feminine. Yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, foreshadowing. Here we go."
That's the wonderful thing
That
about this movie. There's a
the
lot of code in this movie for the audience.
Right.
plus they also have those cool like code deciphering tools that when they're in London, they're like trying to make
Yeah.
sure they don't break the code decipher. But the actress, though, it's what these type of movies also are good is that when they bring in international cast or actors and actresses that people aren't familiar with, it really gives an opportunity to just have a good performance. And the actress herself did a very good job with just playing it the role she was asked to play. A very good screen presence. Also worked well with Tom Hanks. We did when we watched the movie several years ago with some colleagues. A comment was made that I think it was actually really well said. Is that the relationship between Tom Hanks and or Professor Langdon and Sophia, it was non-sexual, so it was
Yeah.
almost like a father-daughter. And since they get into sort of the darkness of like the sacred feminine with also sort of the ritualistic worship done through bodily acts, as she witnessed in the movie as a young girl,
Yeah.
with her, yeah, I think it was with her. Well, it wasn't
Her
technically a family member, it's her guardian,
Yeah.
her guardian that was
Her
posing as
guardian.
her grandfather or father. But basically, that was really well done, and it paired well because they got to work together professionally as a team, and nothing obstructed that basically that Grail quest, if you will, Grail by a different terminology. So overall, it was very good, and then you get to see other people be able to get more entrenched with references and different people. So overall, it was good. But again, we get to the end of the movie in Roslyn, and we're talking about the supernatural, and there's that one part where Jesus walks on water. So she puts her foot on the water and kind of like hovers over it, touches it, but then
Nope.
she doesn't do it. So it's kind of like, oh, could she?
Oh, she
Who
touches it.
knows?
She just doesn't
Yeah.
walk on, or doesn't yield.
She chooses not
to
to
it.
take this step. So it leaves
Yeah.
the mystery of
Yeah.
what could she happen.
Maybe I'll have better luck with the wine. But one of the things I did like about, or the key difference in the movie and in the book, she describes what she saw, why she left Saunier and never spoke to him again, the sex ritual. That's described and explained later in the movie, where in the book, Langdon figured it out why, or basically as they're driving through Paris, it's like, you saw him in a sex ritual, didn't you? She's like, how the fuck did you know? And he's like, yeah, because they do explain in certain theological sects, as in, or sects as in SECT, there are people who do believe that you found God through an orgasm. So
That would be the
yeah.
Gnostic segment in the first, second century.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a lot of Gnostic elements in this movie as well, of like, oh, we have to find this hidden knowledge. It's very like Gnostic adjacent.
And there have been scientific studies, folks, do not go there, get your mind out of the gutter, where people who have, or they actually have done sexual studies where they are trying to basically see if there was any sort of way to back up what those Gnostic religion or religious fervors were saying. What many people said during the moment of completion, shall we say, is that they actually did see a flash in their brain or in their eyes or behind their eyes. They actually noticed that there was a heightened neural activity during those moments for both male and female. And it's like, well, they do call it a mind-blowing experience for a reason. I mean, I actually had to look up this stuff while I was in school, folks.
MK Ultra Online.
Because it's like, this is stuff that kind of comes up when you're learning things like sex education and other things and whatnot. So yeah, these are things that I learned at a relatively early age when doing the research for, well, at that time, scientific purposes. But getting back to the movie, I do like, or when they were talking about Sir Isaac Newton's tomb, the clue that led to Isaac's tomb, and I'm thinking to myself, rosy flesh and seeded womb. And I'm thinking to myself, God, that just makes me hungry for an apple for some reason. That was the first time when I first saw this movie. It's like rosy flesh and seeded womb. Say what?
That was your first thought? That's great, because seeded womb is a fruit. Yeah.
Yeah, and funny thing is, I actually grabbed an apple while watching the movie. I paused to grab an apple while watching the movie for the first time when I saw it years back. And it's like, and then suddenly I realized after I had eaten the apple, and I was like, son of a bitch.
MK Ultra was woven into the movie, and you have tasted now the forbidden fruit of knowledge.
I just keep thinking about Half-Life for some reason. Yeah. How you doing, Anile? It's good to see you, man.
Apple makes the most sense because it's like, oh, Eve was the first woman. We're talking about the divine feminine or female. We're talking about this sacred woman in history. You're like, oh, okay, here we go. It's an apple. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, it's also because Sir Isaac Newton, how did he come up with how did he come up with gravity? Well, fuck, the goddamn apple fell out of a tree and hit him in the head.
Yeah.
How would you compare Hang's or how would I?
The apple knocked some sense and knowledge into his cranium.
Yeah.
Also makes you wonder if Sir Isaac Newton was a part of the Priory of Sion. In real life, he also was. The Priory of Sion, folks, actually did exist in real life. That is something that they did get, or that is a real thing. However, again, don't take your history from movies. The Priory exists. Many art and theatrical endeavors and directors and people throughout history were a part of it. The person who did Les Miserables, who created Les Miserables, he was a Priory member. How would, yeah, yes, he was, or yeah. How would you compare Tom Hanks's role in Da Vinci Code with his other roles, such as Saving Private Ryan, Toy Story series, Castaway, Green Mile, Forrest Gump, Cloud Atlas, and all, or etc.? Honestly, the one thing that I can truly say, which is great about Tom Hanks, he is a king at playing the everyman.
Hmm.
That man can play, or has such range. Have a good night, all right, Kitty. Thank you for stopping in. Always a pleasure. Tom Hanks plays the everyman very well. And when he played in Saving Private Ryan, goddamn, I cried when he died. I can't watch Saving Private Ryan without crying. This movie, I cried for different reasons. It's because of Hans Zimmer's score.
Fair.
A very powerful score.
That when it comes to instrumental music, I get very emotional. It's what I call empathy, or it's what I call empathic, or it's very empathic or empathetic. It's very emotional when it comes to instrumental and classical music, especially with Hans Zimmer. That man does music where you are just, you feel that shit, you know? When Tom Hanks is following the Rose line at the end of the movie, it's like, holy crap, I think I found it. And then he kneels down. When that music is going, and then you suddenly hear him reciting that poem of where she is laying, it's like, holy crap. It's very hard not to have your eyes start to water in that moment if you really like Hans Zimmer's music. That dude,
You have become one with the fleshly tomb.
yeah. I mean, I'm very immersive, folks, when it comes to movies. If you can immerse yourself into that movie where you are literally on that journey with that character, it is very easy to gain the emotion that character is feeling. When Tom Hanks is standing there above the tomb of the Magdalene, he doesn't know what to do, so he gets down and he prays. And it's just honestly, it is a beautiful moment. Now, yes, as heretical as this movie is from a theological standpoint, you can't deny that is a very beautiful moment. What are your thoughts on this, both of you?
You can go ahead, Nevis.
Thanks, Third. No, actually, it's very fitting that you put that the sequence at the end, because the movie starts, in Paris. It starts in a very dark plot of the story, and it actually is predominantly in like blacked out darkness.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the end sequence, and what's cool is he goes back to Paris and he's in the Ritz, and the score very subtly starts to pick up as he's shaving, and then he cuts himself, and that cutting, kind of like we mentioned, the apple hits the apple hits Isaac Newton. He kind of has this epiphany. So the apple falls, the blood falls, and it makes that sign. And he's written the book about the signs and the symbols and everything like that.
The rose
and
line.
It kind of exactly, and it goes down. And where's the tomb in the movie? It's down. And that starts his journey. And as he moves out of his room and he walks through the different parts of the city till he finally gets to Louvre, you have this build ascension where it goes like all the way up and then all the way down. So the score is, I think, one of the best parts of the film throughout the consistency. And then you pair that with the real locations, and it becomes a very emotional, real, intimate journey where you are discovering things about, the full spectrum of your mind and how you feel. But it's definitely, I think, for all intents and purposes, it's an excellent score, and it's kind of in the classic Hans Zimmer. He's done some stuff recently with Dune, where it's very powerful, but it's non-organic. This is a great score paired with a great sequence. So we'll leave it at that.
Kate?
Overall, I like this movie. I think it's very enjoyable. Like you said, don't take your history or your religion from movies. It's just a movie. And this is just, a concept that someone had. It's an adaptation of a book, too. So, I haven't read the books myself, so I don't know how good
They're
the adaptation.
fiction.
Well, just from like a cinephile standpoint, I try to just go in as like a movie watcher and not, my own lens. And it's enjoyable. There's some parts that are pretty dated. There's certain lines of dialogue where I'm like, wow, oh, that's really cheesy and corny, but it's not. It doesn't ruin the flow of the movie, and it doesn't ruin the like the immersive quality, like you were talking about Orange, where the score really kind of gets you into it as you commented on, and I don't know, I enjoyed the movie. I enjoy the concepts of bringing real life things that actual historical elements and weaving them into your narrative fiction. I think that's really cool. And yeah, it's just an overall enjoyable movie experience. Sorry, I'm making tea, so if you hear the kettle going.
It's all right.
But yeah.
Let me ask you something. The corny and dated lines, did it have anything to do with a rudimentary phallus?
No, it was, and maybe I should have written it down to give you like an exact example. But no, it was not that scene.
Because I love that. It's like, can you show us the symbol for man? This is a blade. It's a rudimentary phallus, quite to the point. It's a symbol of manhood. Yes, the more penises you have, the higher your rank. I mean, Ian McKellen really had fun with this role. You could really tell that he had fun with that role.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole scene where it does where it describes the Last Supper and whatnot, it's a powerful scene. It is a very logic-filled scene. Now, when I say logic-filled, folks, I am not by any means saying that what he is saying is true. I am saying that, or rather, logic convincing, shall we say, that for the story or the point of the story, what he is saying makes sense to a degree in which questions can be raised, is what I am saying.
He has put forth a coherent argument that you can deconstruct or pit against, unlike something like War of the Rohirrim, which makes no sense and has no logic.
Yeah. Because it's like, well, okay, if you do look at the fresco of the Last Supper, there isn't a cup on that goddamn painting. There isn't. He's right.
I want to know, as a Christian, what is the fascination with the Holy Grail? Like, nowhere in Scripture does it say that it contains any sort of like magical qualities or anything. Is this something made up by the Catholic Church? Am I like living under a rock?
The Holy Grail is essentially, it's not so much that it is a magical item. It is simply seen as an item that the Lord Jesus Christ used. It is essentially a prop of the Lord.
We have essentially, there's
like this prop.
Right. Okay.
There's an excellent archaeologist, Dr. Henry Jones II, also goes by Indiana Jones, and his
Hmm.
professorship has revealed that, with the cup of Christ that held the blood at the Last Supper, I mean, there's a number of things that you found it. You found it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Son of a bitch, I got this sucker. I had to go all the way to Jordan to get it.
You peaked the peaks of Petra.
Nice alliteration.
Yeah. But yeah,
If you were, I think, from the Catholic position with the sacramental system and it would be called a sacramento and a relic. So if for example you did find the actual cup that was used at the Last Supper, that, as
was
you
never shown in a
mentioned,
painting.
Jesus Christ, fully God, fully man, the touching of that would be, I guess,
It's an
a
ordained
transfer of
item.
holiness or power that would have unknowns, but we
great-grandfather.
don't. Yeah, we don't have it, but that would definitely be treated as I believe, a first-class relic that potentially could work miracles. Would it give you eternal life? Well, I think Christ, depending on how a person would interpret the scriptures, like, well, you have to drink the blood. That's what gives you eternal life.
I mean,
Well,
a lot
and,
of people.
and from like a Protestant perspective, I think just like noticing Catholics put a lot of emphasis on items, like icons, like their iconoclasm, or just relics of history in general. So it's just kind of funny, like the "Thou shalt not create a graven image of me and use it for idol worship," and then there's all of these quote unquote symbols of worship that in a Protestant perspective would be like that's idolatry right there. So it's funny to see the anytime Christianity in general as a whole is portrayed in cinema, it's always around these like relics of Christendom, and it's usually just like really old school Catholicism.
And when you think about it, the whole idolatry argument that you are talking about,
Mhm.
if both Catholics, Protestants, Christians, and all of them really thought it through, these sort of things would not be used. Because
I don't think.
it
I
is,
think. I think
it is
Dracula
an
would.
idol.
I think the Narsil cross could definitely take out Dracula. Definitely,
Oh, the
for
thing
sure.
is, I could easily go to this is a 3D printed. This is 3D printed. This is actual, or Novus, I don't think you know about this. Ever since I saw the Lord of the Rings and I saw the sword, Narsil Andoril, it's like, I want that fucking pommel and I want the hilt. I don't care about the blade. I don't care about the sword. I want the pommel and the hilt. Because I believe that if I can get two of those, I could actually create a cross. Because I think that it would just look really freaking cool as a cross. And it really does, if you think about it. I have a
Does look really
fascination
cool.
with crosses. I have a fascination with crosses, folks. And honestly,
Not a vampire. Got it.
yeah, I'm not a vampire. But honestly, folks, this does sort, I mean, in hindsight, I would actually shorten the top point of the cross down just a little bit more. But I really do think that it turned out well.
I think we can make an unofficial addition to the canon. That is the Gondorian cross now.
Yeah, the Gondorian cross. There you go. The Narsilandral cross.
It's much
But-
closer to canon than this.
The War of the
New-
Rohirrim. Yeah.
Yeah, gosh.
Dr.
I know we're beating a dead horse on this, guys, but good lord, stop killing our lore. Ugh.
And stop killing the horses, the Rohirrim, in fake wars.
Right.
But back to the thing. How would you both rate this movie out of 10? And let's go by my metrics of objective, which means no bias in your scoring, subjective with bias, and moviegoer, you're basing it on entertainment factor alone. We'll start with objective, and we'll start ladies first.
Objective, 8.5 out of 10. Subjective, 7.5. And then moviegoer, for the time as it was, in like what, 2004. I don't think this movie would do the same now if it were released in theaters as it did before. But I think
2006.
overall, yeah, I think it like generally, 8.5 out of 10.
All right. Novus, yours 3 scores.
Objectively, we'd probably put it at like a 6 to 7. We would equate that to 3 out of 5 popcorn tubs. Are you entertained? Yes. I think the strengths of the film are the travel, and I think the strengths of the film are the music. The story, I mean, the story is one of, kind of a conspiratory historical mystery. So objectively, I think we'd give it that 6 to 7 and 3 out of 5 popcorn tubs. Subjectively, we'd probably raise it to 3.5, maybe 3.25, but probably about the same. We'd round it up to 7 because we enjoyed the film, but we also look at it where, does the film drive you to go see it again? Case in point, Casino Royale, we saw that 3 times. The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, we actually watched 5 times in the theaters because of the battle sequence. That was purely the battle sequence. But yeah, this was like, it was one and done. It was good. I think we may have watched it on DVD once or twice, but it's not a film that just like, I got to watch this film. Kind of like there's certain films that you got to watch like at once a year. Christmas films are usually, Charlie Brown's Thanksgiving, but those are more subjective. So, 6 to 7 objectively, and then about a 7 subjectively.
And what of moviegoer based on entertainment value alone?
I think it's an average film, because if the travel and the music isn't your thing, I mean, it's a professor talking about academic stuff. It's just shot on the loose. So I think it did well. It made its budget back. So it's an average film from a moviegoer thing, but then not much more after that.
As for me, objectively, I put this movie at an 8.5. There are some moments to actually give this more proper scoring, theatrical edition, which takes out a good deal of the film. This movie is about an 8.5 or an 8 to an 8.5, where it is a solid 8.5 to the special edition, because there are some scenes, like the scene of Silas, the albino monk played by Paul Bettany, where he is in prison and escaping prison, and there is the most god-awful blue screen ever. So yes, it is. Those are flaws, folks. It's like, holy crap, are those ever flaws? There are some scenes that could have been a little bit better thought out. I think that for the most part, the film is beautifully written, has a beautiful score, great cast. The story is compelling. It keeps you in the moment. It keeps you in the movie. I do not like to be taken out of when I'm immersed into a film, to distract me or do anything like that for me. It enrages me. It sets up a flare of a volcano, so to speak, inside me. It's like, you're pulling me out of this. I don't like that. What the fuck do you want? I mean, there's been times where I'm watching a movie and I'm so immersed into it, like the ending of this movie, and the door rang and I'm like, what the actual fuck? I said that, and the pizza person who I called, because I called for pizza that night, and they're like, sorry to interrupt, got your pizza. And I'm like, I am so sorry. I have to apologize for that. But subjective.
Did you say keep the change, you filthy animal, and send him off with the Tommy the machine gun?
Oh no, but I definitely gave that guy a tip, and it's like, here you go, thank you, keep the change, goodbye, click, and I just fucking closed the door. It's like because it was a rush to get back into the feeling that I was feeling in that movie. You know, it wasn't this movie, it was a different movie, but subjectively, I put this movie at a 9. I thoroughly enjoy this movie. I love the mystery aspect of it, the clue aspect of it. I like how there are some parts where characters come in and then they're gone completely, which they actually have actors that are rather known of the time. The actor that they have played or was well known during the 90s and 2000 era, who played Andre Vernet, the guy at the Swiss bank, who tried to rob him of the box. Turns out he's not just, or he's just there and then gone, you know. But they actually grabbed a pretty decently known actor at the time for that role.
And he did have a great sequence when the guard's asking him about, like, how does a security guard, driver
Oh yeah.
have a Rolex? He's like, oh, this POS? Oh, I got this for $50. He's like, do you want it? He's like, oh,
Yeah.
no. That was great.
Oh, that's 30. Come on, 30. I said no. It's like he's bribing a cop. Oh shit. But moviegoer, as in, I'm judging it by entertainment value alone and how many times I look at the time. I can watch this movie without looking at the time because it keeps me that thoroughly entertained. So this movie is definitely a 10 out of 10 moviegoer. But yeah, folks, that is going to be the discussion that we have for Da Vinci Code. I thoroughly recommend it for people to watch. However, just remember, go in not looking at it from a theological standpoint, but looking at it from a movie standpoint, and don't get your history from film. Because yes, this movie pissed off a lot of people at the church. The Vatican itself stayed silent, but they were very supportive of the people who called for the boycott of the film when it came out. Stay tuned next week. We will be back with more topics as well as the angels and demons discussion. I got some stuff to point out in that one that'll pretty much knock your socks off, folks. Tuesday night is the Barroom Podcast. Tuesday afternoon will be my discussion about Skinwalkers. It's a movie that skirted under the radar, but kind of gained cult classic status after a while. Also, stay tuned for Wednesday and Thursday this month or this week. Me and Mara Jade I will be on her channel at 8:30 Wednesday to talk about Home Alone. And Thursday we will be talking Mouse Hunt for the singles on X at 8:30 exclusively on Thursday. And then Friday, I am on Janet's channel with the shit show. I'm still trying to figure out what's wrong with my StreamYard account because it's not allowing me to mirror streams, and it's not allowing me to talk to people in the chat either from StreamYard. So it's kind of weird. But thank you to everybody who showed up. Neozoic. Neozoic, Vanya, Junebug, Wansel, Kitty, Price is Right, Nerd Ogre, Ambassador Society, Christian, Annihilus, and the rest of everybody else. Novus, thank you for dropping in. Do you want to come back for for next week?
We'll just check with our schedule. We do want to come back with you, but we'll get with you and confirm. It may be on some international travel, but Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you. Also compliments and same to Nerd with Cigar. Love the Gino Carano picture. It's awesome you got a chance to meet her. And we have all of our stuff on novusrenaissance.com and then X and YouTube and Instagram as well.
All right. And thank you to Kate for joining every week. She's one of our hosts or co-hosts. So, yep. And with that, folks, y'all have a wonderful night, and always remember to stay humble. Peace.
Are you done? Are you done?